Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I want to know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we are talking about Black police officers, Black law enforcement, and double identity, Black law enforcement and double identity. So my special guest, Mr. Michael D. Love, is in the house, and I will read a little bit of his bio and then have him come on and talk a little bit about himself. But before I do, I want to hear from you. What city and state are you tuning in from? Put it in the comments. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, which will allow you to comment. And we are also live on RokuTV via the Greater Works Network, my network. So please hit the like button, share, subscribe if you have not already subscribed to Conversation with Nicole, because subscribing is support, and we need all the support we can get. This is a safe space. We've been focused on Black environmental health since November of last year, and we are just uncovering so much. And so my guest is both a former law enforcement person. He was with the police department with Savannah, Georgia for 15 years. And he also is a clinician, which I think is just quite the story. So again, I'm excited and delighted that he's here. But I see some of you chiming in. So let me go ahead and shout you out. My cousin Denise in Texas, thanks for being here. Miss Tracy Golag right here in Tallahassee. My mom down in Miami, thank you for being here, Ma. And Bassetta Parker in Richmond, Virginia, thank you for being here. So this, again, is a safe space for us to express ourselves judgment-free and in a respectful manner. So again, any comments, any questions, please put them in the chat so that we can address them. And listen, tag your Black police officer, Black sheriff friends. Tell them they need to be on here because we're going to have a great conversation. And we want to hear from them too. All right. So Mr. Michael D. Love, isn't that a cool name, Michael Love? He is a licensed clinical social worker, owner and sole proprietor of a behavioral health company called Help You Counseling. I love that name. Located in Jacksonville, Florida, his company currently provides online telehealth therapy services to adults and children 12 years and older. The company also specializes in providing therapy for veterans and first responders. He's also employed full-time with the Veterans Administration as a community resource and referral social worker, serving homeless veterans in the Jacksonville area. He has a master's degree in social work with a focus in advanced clinical practice from St. Leo University, master's in psychology from University of Phoenix, and he's currently pursuing a doctorate in social work from Capella University. He is a 10-year Navy veteran, former Georgia certified police officer with 16 years of experience, which, again, that just totally blows me away. Over the past 12 years, he's worked in child welfare, substance abuse, correctional therapy, and school social worker. Before joining the VA, he was director of mental health services for a nonprofit serving individuals with developmental disabilities, and he worked part-time at a nonprofit homeless transition center that served veterans, where he provided individual and group counseling sessions. He's happily married for almost 10 years and has 4 children plus a bonus child. So help me welcome Mr. Michael D. Love. Yay.
What's up, Nicole? Goodness, I think I'm about to hire you as my publicist. Oh my goodness.
We'll talk. So welcome, Michael. Tell the peoples, who is Michael D. Love? I mean, I kind of read some of it, but outside of what you do, who are you?
Well, I'm a country boy, born and raised in Sweet Onion, capital of the world. I guess I shouldn't plug it, but I am. Vidalia, Georgia, depends on where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
Went to high school there, did all my formative years there. Most of my family was there. If they weren't there, they're up in a little town called Soperton, Georgia. So Love quarters, all that. So if you're from Georgia in that area and your last name is Love or Baker,
probably some kin.
Yeah, we're pretty much related. I'm gonna give a shout out to my cousin, Basetta Parker. She put a little thing on there. So thank you, cuz, for checking in.
Nice, cousin Basetta. Thank you for being here. Good deal. All right. Well, thank you much for that. Appreciate it. So, you got to talk a little bit about this police officer turned counselor piece. Like, how do we get there? I mean, although I do believe that a lot of police officers are counselors, but how do we move from, being a man in blue to now, having folks come sit on the couch?
Well, short and sweet of it all, I got out of the Navy in '92, and I was doing strictly electronics during that whole 10-year time. It's kind of strange when I think about it now. And professionally, I was going to be a nurse. That was my whole thing. My sister was a nurse, very secure field. Went to school, working while I was going to school, and ended up getting hired on in corrections, and enjoyed it. Worked and realized I had a gift for gab, because in the prisons, you don't have, any weapons or anything like that. All you got is your communication skills and empathy skills, and you de-escalate people when you talk to them. So, I realized I enjoyed that, and that was in Savannah also. So when they were hiring, and I was always looking to, improve my financial status.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hired on with the Savannah Police Department in '95. Goodness gracious, when I think about that. Got on, enjoyed it. Community-oriented policing was the big thing. Any special details I got on. I got trained as a field training officer, as a self-defense tactics instructor, firearms. Was on the SWAT team for maybe 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that the best way for me to relate to people and not have to arrest so many people, because I'm going to confess to this, I did not like going to court.
Ah.
Yeah. So
okay, there we got it. I got you.
Yeah, you go to court for 8 hours, and back in those days, I think we were getting, maybe $30 just to go to court.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find a way to not go to court and still do my job. So I realized that if I talked to people more, related, got down with them, listened to them, showed them the pros and cons. Hey, if you've been locked up before, do you really want to go to jail now? You got kids, you got a job, you go to court, that's fines and fees you got to pay. And, be straight up with your man or sir, I would tell them, I really don't want to go to court either. So let's find a less destructive way to handle this situation.
Gotcha.
And the more I did that, the more I realized that, psychology, so I
Okay.
ended up getting my first master's in psychology, left the police department, came to Florida and realized I couldn't do therapy like I needed to.
Hmm.
And because you had to have certain classes. So I ended up
Mhm.
having to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to owe Uncle Sam until I'm under the grave for school loans. Say that.
Wait a minute. Biden just, Biden forgiving the student loans. Come on.
Some of them. I'm waiting for him to give me a nice little chunk.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right. So before we get started with our topic, I want to read my CWN disclaimer, which states that all topics past, present, and future on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only, and they are not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or any answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. I said it. All right. So, Black police officers and double identity. So when I talked to Michael about him being a police officer and a counselor, I thought about the movie Black and Blue. So this movie came out, I believe it was 2016, 2018. If anybody saw it, let me know in the comments. If you saw Black and Blue, give me a thumbs up, a church finger, or raise your hand. Let us know in the comments. But I was so intrigued by that story because and not to give it all away, but it's basically about a Black female officer who was former military but came home and started working on the force and found herself in a situation where she wasn't fitting in on the force because she was a Black woman, nor in the community because she was a police officer. And so I thought, man, what a pickle. What a place to be in where you really, want to try to serve the community, but the community doesn't trust you because of, and I would say, the history of, Black folks and police, right? Because the police history, if you study it, um, you know, police were the precursor, or well, slave, what were they called? Slave patrols are the precursor to police officers, and so yeah, not a great history when you study that. And just some of the run-ins that we have had with law enforcement, and so I kind of empathize with Black police officers because I just think, man, they must really, have a tough time there, and maybe things have gotten such that it's not, I'm sure, maybe the first police officers back during integration or what have you, uh, they probably really had it rough, but my heart just kind of went out to him. So I just thought this would be an interesting topic, especially since you have been on that side and now are a counselor. So I don't know, let's dive in. Where should we start?
I didn't, I knew the basic history of police work, starting in the, 1700s, Boston police, starting in, over in England, the constables, you get that. Well, that's what I got in my academy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Growing up, I didn't have much contact with police officers. I didn't hate them.
Mm-hmm.
I did know that Black police officers were rare because I think there were only 2 on the Vidalia Police Department when I was growing up. And the fact that I can remember that, when I was preparing for this, this talk here, I said, oh my goodness. So, and of course they were looked up in the community, and I still know their names now. I'm not going to call them out, but
wow,
it just wasn't, I didn't have a negative.
You didn't have a negative thoughts or connotations or, anything about them like that.
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
All right.
Yeah.
And so I guess so. Let me ask you this: in growing up and seeing them, did that inspire you? Seeing them as the only two Black police officers, did that inspire you to want to be a police officer?
No, no. I saw it as a respectful job,
Mm-hmm.
definitely for Black men. I came into it late. I was 30 when I joined the force
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in Savannah, and knew about police work. Security in the Navy. Standing watches. Doing some shore patrol, which is the Navy's version of police work when you go
Uh-huh.
port to port. So I knew what it was. I understood what it was. It wasn't, social media wasn't that big back in those days when I was growing up. So any, police brutality that came to the news, it was just, came into the news or newspaper, it was like a singular incident to me.
Okay.
And I think the fact that I didn't have a negative police experience. Now,
Right.
I will say, as a kid, when I was 17, I did do something that did get me in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my fault. So it wasn't like I hadn't done anything and they came and, harassed me or anything like that.
Okay.
Just short story. I did something with some property. They ended up arresting one of my friends because for some reason they thought he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. I went,
And
took
yeah.
responsibility and did all that. So even with that, and I think about that, I didn't have a negative,
Experience. Right.
I did something wrong, and mom and dad
Mm-hmm.
raised me and said, if you do something wrong, you are going to go.
Right. You need to be accountable and responsible for your actions.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So in thinking about, again, this movie and some of what folks may experience, and I see my cousin D, who is up in New York and Long Island. He actually serves, I believe, with the state troopers for New York. So I'm glad you're on here, D.
Wow.
Thank
Okay.
you for your service. I'm just curious, and I really would like to hear not only from you, Michael, but also for any Black law enforcement officers on the live. If you experience, racism, discrimination, prejudice while on the force, or if you felt it, maybe you didn't, maybe it was not as direct. It might have been indirectly, but did you sense or feel in any of that while you were on the force?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
Georgia. I mean, I hate to say it, not that putting a negative spin on it, but and it's not just in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't just say that, but yes, I did. And I think the fact that I was older and have been exposed to some other culture and in the Navy and seeing some other things,
Mm-hmm.
I handled it a whole lot better than I might have when I was younger. And not trying to be specific or anything, but
Yeah.
I learned in the Navy, because that's where I got most of my kind of racism in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only African American in my division in the Navy. Only African American in A schools and C schools.
Mm.
And the only reason I was able to handle that the way I was because, mom, didn't enforce the fact that, we're different. and there were books, and I always read that. But
Mm.
since I had experienced most of my racism in the military, I knew what to look for when I got to the police force.
Mm.
So if I saw it, and if it was presented, and when it was presented to me, I how can I put this? I Andy Griffith it is what I told myself.
Okay.
And pretty much before Michelle Obama, you go high, when they go low, you go higher. I mean, that's what I did. I didn't acknowledge it, and I didn't get mad about it.
Okay.
I would read off an SOP saying, "Are you sure that this is how this is supposed to go? Because according to, what SOP, we're not supposed to do this."
So let me pause right there. You said you didn't acknowledge it, and you didn't get mad about it. But I'm sure it affected you, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It let me know who I could talk to and who I couldn't talk to, and what to expect whenever I got around this particular person or persons.
So you talk about code switching. That we did a whole show on whether or not parents should raise their children to have double identity. But here you are, in the midst of this job, right? And trying to be your authentic self and act with integrity and that sort of thing. And not that you in not talking to somebody about whatever is non-integral, but there's a trust factor, right? And so
Yep.
that's being broken like that. Now you building this wall, right?
Yeah, and the thing about police work that most people don't know, and I'm just going to say civilians, when you get dispatched on a call, you don't know what it is. Guns, no guns, whatever the information that the dispatchers got, they give it to you. Then you get there, and there's always a weapon. It'll be a knife, bat, brick. When you need that help, when you need that backup, you want to make sure that somebody is coming for you, because it's not TV, TJ Hooker or The Rookie, where you take down all the bad guys and kung fu and all that stuff. No, it's a whole different ballgame. So you don't want to piss somebody off, and I hate to say that, to where you've given them a reason not to back you up. So when it came to certain people on the watch, you knew what their proclivities were. That's how I like to put it.
Wow.
And hey, whatever you do off the clock is fine, but you call me, I'm gonna be there. I call you, you should be there. Now, if for some reason you realize that they don't or they aren't there, you may have to have a talk with them after the watch. And it depends on who your supervisor is or sergeant is. You can include them in that. But I've seen situations where sergeant had a certain proclivity, and the person you're working with was in league with the sarge, and you didn't have anybody to back you up. You might want to transfer out of that precinct or transfer out of that division, just for your career's sake and definitely for your safety's sake.
Wow, that's deep. I hope y'all are hearing this. I mean, I hope y'all are getting it the way I am. I mean, you putting your life on the line, and this is supposed to be your and I'm gonna just call them brother or sister in blue, and they aren't so inclined to back you up because of the skin that you're in. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. But it goes down like that. All right. So Wow. And then, so let me ask you this, because I've had a few shows or some conversation. I have one show specifically about Blacks in the military, and there was that particular clinician talked about the amount of death by suicide that takes place, um, not only amongst Black folks in the military, but just military people, period, and how getting some type of psych eval or counseling or what have you is not looked upon favorably in the military. So I would imagine that that is also transferred to law enforcement. You know, like maybe you might not measure up, or it might show weakness or vulnerability, and now you soft and that sort of thing. So is that, am I kind of on one point with that? Am I thinking or not so much?
I think in some departments, I'm hoping it's not as bad as it used to be. Um, and I think a lot of that depends on who your immediate supervisor is, and then your supervisor above him. Just some personal acknowledgement. While I was on marriage stuff, financial stuff, some work stuff, which is another thing that led me to a counseling. I ended up having to go talk to somebody, and my sergeant was good with it. My captain was good with it. My department head was definitely, good with it. And how they explained it to me was, we just want to make sure you can do your job without hurting somebody else or hurting someone. And it wasn't the fact that I had, done any use of force stuff. It was the fact that, issues, and I was taking care of family like 90 miles down the road. I'm going to say, and I was driving back and forth to work for like 6 months, and younger, and I didn't think the driving was a problem, but there's a difference in highway driving and police driving. I know that. But I guess my mindset was, I think out of a 12-hour day, I was behind the car at least 9 hours. So, if you're in the car that long, the more you do stuff, the more you become accustomed to. But anyway, I was wrecking a number of police cars, had a number of accidents. And I guess due to my good nature and my sergeant and definitely my captain, instead of being fired, they said, what's going on? And I told them. So they said, once you go see somebody, talk to somebody. And I did. And it helped. And I was allowed to stay on the police force. And I'm going to thank my captain at this time, because the chief had another plan for me. Whatever the reason was, I don't know. But, I was able to, stay on my job. There was no stigma attached to it. And I was still able to make rank. So I think a lot of it depends on your chain of command. Now, I've heard opposite stories where, people did a whole lot less than I did, and
they had to go.
They had to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Keisha Washington, she said it's a possibility of the same happening in the military, but color has nothing to do with it. It's how you treat people in peacetime. And so, yeah, I don't know, military, law enforcement, all of that is kind of synonymous in my mind, at least. A lot of law enforcement are former military, and so you see some of the same culture just transferring over, as well as you talked about like marital issues and things of that nature. So you hear of sometimes, domestic issues, alcoholism, and things of that nature. So, I see a lot of that transference going on. We do have a question, so I do want to address that as well. But before we do, just my pause for a station ID. For those of you who are just joining us, I have Mr. Michael D. Love, a counselor based in Jacksonville, Florida, and former police officer in Georgia. We're talking about Black officers, Black law enforcement, and double identity. So, Mr. Joel Williams, who is also an officer down in South Florida, says, do you feel that most officers in police work go along just to get along when they encounter the blunt racism from other officers?
Of course, I can't speak for everybody, but I
You
think,
can.
I think it depends on the situation. If law enforcement is your chosen career and you want to make rank, and I'm hoping to God is not it, that racial relations has improved more.
Right.
You might have to deal with a little bit of sand kicking. You know what I'm saying? You might have to swallow some stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say this: don't do it to the detriment of your moral character. You know what I'm saying? If somebody's being blatantly racism, learn the rules and regulations. I learned that while I was in the Navy. Learn what people can and cannot do, and stick with that. And whenever you argue, and when I say argue, I mean debate. I don't mean fight or fuss, but like when you argue in court, stick to what was done and how it was a violation of whatever SOP or rules or regulation that you have, and you give them nowhere to go. Now, if you still do that, there are still other steps. File civil lawsuit. Take it federal. But it's up to each individual to, weigh their pot of gold, I call it. If you want to stay, if this is your career, then fight for it.
Indeed. Dee said most agencies have an entire peer program trained to confidentially deal with the day-to-day situations that arise with members. Yeah. I guess it just kind of depends on which organization you're with and, kind of how it's handled, right?
Yeah, it depends on the size, the size of your. It depends on the size of your organization.
Yeah. Because we see on television or in the movies, it's like this brotherhood, this sisterhood, or what have you, and so it's the whole, almost like a fraternal or sorority, if you will, but a fraternal, I guess, order. So I don't know if the camaraderie is really truly there, as it's sometimes portrayed.
I will say, you know what? It's like every other organization. The only difference is your buddy carries a gun instead of a pen or a notebook or a tablet, or a computer. Police work is police, the organization as a whole, is like any other organization.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use this line. I mean, there are good and bad people. There are. And I'm not saying it to negate anything, but the only difference with police work is a police officer can take your freedom, and in the worst cases, we've seen it. They can take your life, and that's what makes it, so bad.
Right. So, what about self-care? What about, and I'm throwing that out there because I actually was able to do a ride along with an officer a few years ago, and immediately when I got in the car with him, I asked him about that, and he started telling me about the death by suicide numbers being so high, and what self-care kind of looked like for him. So, how important is self-care, and not only for Black officers, but for all officers?
So important. I mean, if police see the worst of people every day.
Yes.
And if you don't find a way to, um, release that tension that you feel,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to talk to a lot of police officers don't want to talk to their wife or kids or, uh, other civilians, and they end up usually talking to other police officers. But if you do talk to other police officers, I would suggest setting boundaries. Like, let's not talk about work. Let's talk about sports. Let's talk about art. Let's talk about movies. Let's not talk about Joe Blow who did something to his wife or did something to himself or ran a car, off. Leave work at work. Find you a hobby, something that you enjoy. Exercise. Um, Read, write poetry, do origami. Find something else that is totally unrelated to police work. And that's with any job you have. You can't tuck your job 24/7, 365. Police work is more, pressing, more dangerous because wherever you go, you have a gun. And but nowadays, so does everybody else with the lax and gun laws. And I tell some of my fellow police officers, I don't know how y'all do it. I really don't. Back when I was policing, it was a shock and a surprise if we found a gun on somebody. But nowadays, you expect it, and it's so my hat is off to all my buddies still in the police force and any current police officer that's working. Be safe out there, really.
Okay. All right, we got Solomon on, who is a military person. He says all programs within the Army are only geared towards protecting the commander, nobody else. That goes for EO, SHARP, VA, IG, etc. I don't know what any of that is, Solomon, but hey, those who are Army people, they probably can decipher all of that for us. These programs are not for the benefits of the soldiers. Okay. Well, so where do soldiers turn? Where does law enforcement turn if they can't turn within? Then where can they go? I guess maybe having a counselor or somebody that they can confide in. Outside of the organization, if they aren't comfortable doing that from within.
Definitely. There's always your pastor if you're an avid churchgoer. You can pay for your own counseling if you have to. And I can't, I kind of hate to say that there should, nothing is perfect.
Right.
I tell some of my clients, where we are now is not heaven. It's not meant to be heaven. So it's not perfect here. So when you're giving a person solutions and they say, well, it's not working. It's not working. Keep doing something or keep looking for something until you find what works. And sometimes the only option is, you may have to leave, leave police work. Or just like you may have to leave your company if you're not satisfied with the work. If the work is not satisfying, your boss is not, being cooperative and helping you succeed in your job, there's always an option. It may not be the one that you want,
right?
But then you have to look at what is it that you need. Do you really need this job? Can you function going somewhere else?
So we talked about counting up the costs, looking at the pros and cons, so on and so forth. So Dar said, who's right here in Tally, he said conformity and uniformity are very often not of benefit to the soul. They crush the souls of the individual.
Mm.
Yes, but we got to have law and order, right?
You got to have law and order, and
In society, right?
in society, and no matter what you think about it or not, you conform. You will conform somewhere in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Get married.
Right.
You will conform. You have to
Mm-hmm.
conform. You can call it compromise, but you can still be you, conform to be you, and your wife can conform to be her. Different name, same tide, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
A rose is still a rose, but never the name. But what you don't want to do, and I'll say this, don't lose yourself. Don't lose your moral, whatever your moral compass is, whatever your core beliefs are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't lose that. If your job is taking that from you, then you are not you. You're your job. And like, where are you in that? You are supposed to be working for your company,
Right.
to help your life. Your company should not be working your life, working you, for their benefit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That balance, work-life balance, that's a big thing now. You got to have work-life balance. If you don't have that,
Indeed. All right. Dar followed up by saying, when I say that, I mean fraternities, orders, spaces where there are the masters and the subjects, the commanders and the officers. We are all human. Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, but but there is an order to things, right? Everybody's not going to be a leader. Yeah, leader of yourself, but not of an organization, right? There's a hierarchy, there's an order. And so, I think about maybe in if you could, based on some of your experience, Michael, chime in, and maybe you see in some of the laws that have to be enforced, and maybe they aren't so favorable for your fellow brothers and sisters, right?
that's true. There's a whole lot of studies, and I can pull them up where we as African Americans, people of color, we don't have the funds, number one, to get the representation that we need, and I guess I'll say number two, most times when we get arrested, or we're the person that gets arrested is the breadwinner of the family usually.
Right.
So you want to resolve that situation as quickly as you can, and in the most least expensive way that you can. So you would take a plea bargain. You can sit in, you want to get out of jail quick so you can go back to work. You take a plea bargain. And sometimes you get time served. I'm sure all of us know this. And sometimes, you get the full stick, you end up going to prison. So there's a imbalance in the criminal justice system. That's been said so many times, and times again. And what some cities are trying to do now is do away with the bail bond part of it. If it's not a serious offense, they'll let you go. And that bail bond part, or paying bond, making bail, only adds to the economical instability of people of color. We get arrested. You want to get out of jail, you got to make bail. If you don't have any collateral, you got to borrow money, to get out. And then the bail bonds may give you, a break. You pay them $100. Your bail is 10,000, whatever. It may be, it's usually 10%. You pay $100, but you still, if you can't afford whatever you pay the bail bondsman, you get set up on payments. That's an outside agency from whatever police department that has arrested you. They're going to tack on their fees, and it just all adds up. So getting arrested is worse for people of color, most people of color, I would say, than, for Caucasians. Now, if you're poor, it doesn't make a difference whether you're black, white, red, or brown.
Right.
It's still going to affect you all the same.
Severely. I mean,
Severely.
what you just described was a black hole, because it's like one thing after the other. And it's almost like student loans. You just don't ever be trying to pay and get out of that thing. So, yeah. Wow. So, yeah, I was just, again, thinking about, like, again, the power that that police have in terms of the discretion that they have to arrest somebody, or go a little bit more lenient on them, or what have you. And I would imagine, again, as a black officer, that would be troublesome to trying to enforce the law, but also having some type of empathy, or towards your fellow brother or sister, who that, like, if you were arrested, all of the consequences that, like, kind of come with all of that, in terms of not only the incarceration and not being able to earn your livelihood or what have you, but again, the fees and fines associated with it, and if attorneys are involved and all of that, so court costs, and yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And it depends on your department, police department, but some departments have more discretion as to when to make an arrest or not. Now, usually, how about I put my foot in my mouth? If it's a misdemeanor, the officer has the discretion as to whether or not to arrest a person.
Mm-hmm.
But it's up to the officer.
Right.
So, if you pissed off, and I hate to say this, and it shouldn't make a difference, but we're only human.
Mm-hmm.
And when you first get on a department, and I'm going to say this because I was when I got on too, you drink the Kool-Aid till you realize it's not your flavor that you really wanted. So my first 3 years on, I think I locked up everybody that I had probable cause and articulable suspicion to lock up, because that's how you show your sergeant that you have learned the job, you want to be on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that everybody I locked up, I got to go to court for. So like I said, that first 3 years, I learned to work smarter than harder.
Listen, y'all. Michael did not like going to court. Okay?
I did not like going to court, because
that's why he became a counselor. Because
yes, that's what it is.
Going to court.
Yeah, 8 hours I sit there, or 5 hours I sit there. I was on the afternoon shift. Court is at 9. I get out at 2. So from 9 to 2, I've been in court. And court pay back in those days was either $25 or $35 for what, 6 hours, 7 hours, and I still got to go to work at 3 o'clock. That's not, they weren't paying overtime back in those days. So I said, no,
it's not adding up.
No, it's not adding up. So let me talk to you, so I don't have to come back out here, so I don't have to arrest you, and so you don't have to pay bail, because you got to make it beneficial for them. I just can't say, hey, I don't want to lock you up because I don't want to go to court. No. How can I work this out? How can we work this out? And it worked. Stats went down. Some people might have said something every now and then. But you know what? I didn't have any complaints. I was doing my community-oriented policing. People came to the precinct and said, I want to thank Officer Love for not locking me up. Blase, because if he had. So once I got 1 or 2 of those, it was on like popcorn after that.
Like popcorn. Yes, all right. So I'm going to ask you directly. We talking about Black police officers and double identity. So what would you say to a Black police officer that is struggling with being a Black person that's dressed in blue? What advice would you give them if they're struggling with, trying to, hold it down as a law enforcement and do their job, but they're struggling because of, the racism, the bias, the discrimination, or what have you within the force. But then they're struggling on the outside in the community as well because they're a police officer. What would you suggest, or what advice would you give them?
You can't serve two masters.
Mm.
I'm going to say that as a religious thing. I consider myself more spiritual than religious. I only go to church when I feel like I need to go to church. I believe in God, believe in a higher power, but that's a subject for another talk.
Okay.
You can't serve two masters. The only master you can serve is yourself. So know yourself, know your rules and regulations, and talk. If you get assigned a beat, which means a particular area that you're going to have, no matter what day you come on. And once I got my beat assignment and I was there, they knew me. I got out of the car. I talked to the people. Now, like I said, the first 3 years I got on, I locked up folks. So I had to make some amends to some people, but do your job to the best of your ability within the realm of your rules, know your SOPs, know your laws that they teach you in the academy. And once you do that, and even before you get assigned to be, just talk to people. If you are uncomfortable doing something on the police force, talk to somebody. There's usually a chaplain on the police force. There's usually a preacher, all denominations on the police force, depending on what size of it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do your job. And it does involve having to lock some people up sometimes. So do it respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make this short. I came down here, I think my 6th year down here in Jacksonville. I was at the gas station pumping gas. Guy said, "Hey, Officer Love." Now I'm in Jacksonville, and I was a cop in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
Guy said, "Hey, glasses." I used to wear some big rim glasses on the police force. For a split second, I said, okay. I stopped carrying a gun. Didn't have a gun.
Right.
I said, "Hey, man, what's up?" He said, "What you doing down here?" I said, I moved here." I said, "What you doing down here?" He said, "I'm down here visiting family." I said, "Well, it's good to see you." He said, "It's good to see you too." He said, "So you ain't police down in Savannah no more?" He said, "No." I said, "You ain't still doing the stuff you were doing in Savannah down here?" He started laughing. He said, "No." He said, "You know what? Of all the police officers, you was okay." And I'm telling you, if I remember correct, the last time I had to arrest this guy, I had to run him down. But when I caught him, it was all right. He said, "You got me. You got me." I said, "Okay." I mean, but it a lot depends on, and I'm going to say this, no matter whether you arrest them or not, they're still human. And we lose that, and it's been shown. But I never was nasty to anybody because I guess nobody was nasty to me when I was growing up doing that. I treated him with respect. I locked him up. Didn't rough him up. Who said push the head in the car? I forgot what president said that.
Right.
I didn't do that. No, there was no need for that. I caught him, arrested him, put him in the car. He knew what he had on him. He got locked up, did his time, and got out. And I said to myself after I left, I said, "Lord, thank you, Jesus, for me not being, brutal police, to all these, people I arrested, because it could have played out differently."
It could have. So Ron said something that I thought was worth repeating. He said, "I think building relationships with civilians is key in policing." And you and I kind of had talked about that, the whole community policing piece, that being critical, especially in our community, right? Because in certain Black communities, we congregate, like we out and about, out in the community. When I say out in community, we sitting under the tree, we at the corner store, we're, that's just what we do. So, talking to those folks and building relationship is very important. So Solomon had a comment that I thought was I want to hear from you and from the viewers about this one. All right. So Solomon said, this is why I always say that the police force needs to be segregated. Blacks need to police blacks. Whites need to police minority, and whites need to police whites. One of the worst things we have done is integrate. Segregating the police, pending manpower, will almost eliminate a lot of the issues we see between black and white. So what y'all think about that? Should we have segregated police? Let me know in the comments. Segregated. Give me a thumbs up if you think we should have segregated police. A thumbs down if you think we should not. Let me know. Segregated police, yes. Integrated police, no. Let me know in the comments. No judgment. It's just a little poll. What you think? What you think? What you think? All right.
You can't go back. You can't go back.
Can't go back.
Can't go back.
All right. Ozzy said no. D said no. Anybody else? All right. Well, how we gonna handle it then? Look, if we don't segregate them, how we gonna handle it? All right. Hold on. No. Miss Marion said no. Vanessa said no. Denise said no. Michael Court said everybody your color ain't necessarily your kind. That's true. Sharmika said no. All right. No. A lot of no's. Absolutely not. Who was that? All right. Dar said segregated. No, but when they call a woman officer to pat a woman down, they could do the same for people of color. That's a point. That's a point. That's a point. That is a spiral down, but I think you should police the community they live in. All right. All right, Solomon. That's not a popular opinion, but hey, listen, that's okay. Dr. Parks, who I was on with last night, he said all skin folk ain't kinfolk. No. All right. Thank you, Dr. Parks. Michelle said no. Okay. All right. All right. So we just got to work through it, right?
Got to work through it. You got to live together.
Okay. Solomon further said that white people are naturally afraid of blacks, especially with white men versus black men. So they will always have a desire to manhandle our people. So if you're saying no to segregation, then you're being complacent to the abuse. Yeah, I think we just got to work through it. We just got to work through it. We got to live peacefully, try to live peaceably here on this earth. Dar said nothing protects black mothers like black doctors. I don't know what you mean by that. So why is policing any different? Okay. Y'all going a little deep for me. We're gonna have to have a sidebar conversation about this. All right. In closing, Officer Love, Michael Love, anything you wish to share with the people?
I came across this statistic from research by one of the youngest tenured African-American teachers at Harvard. He's a black guy, Mr. Ronald G. Fryer. And this is probably going to upset some folks, because when I read it, I thought it was off. But his study, it was like a 2-year study, and it said, although black people are significantly more likely to experience non-lethal force at the hands of police more often than white people in similar situations, he did conclude that there is no racial bias in fatal police shootings. So, to put it in layman's terms, black folks and people of color get harassed more, get beat up more, punched more, anything that's non-lethal, which means that doesn't kill you. But according to him, we don't experience getting shot any more than Caucasians. You can take that with a grain of salt, however you want to, but research, and I can give you the article and all that.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, Nick said
and this was done in 2017. Done in
2017, where in Canada? Where in
no,
England? Where was
no.
he?
He came to Jackson. He came to Jacksonville, Georgia. A couple of police departments in Georgia, Alabama. I think he did 4 Southern police agencies and 4 Northern police agencies.
Javon said lies. Solomon said he need to see the stats on that. That's only an opinion, which everyone is entitled to.
It is a research study. They questioned people. They went out to these agencies. They took statistics, looked at all the records.
Mm-hmm. You know, you can make the stats say whatever you want them to say, right? Look, people want to see the receipts around here.
Yeah. I thought I'd leave everybody with that grain of salt. Research on it. When I heard it, I thought about the same too. But social media makes it look. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Social media can make it look worse than what it is. Indeed. I'm not going to say it is not there, but you
Indeed. Dar, I see your comment, which is a little lengthy. We actually mentioned the slave patrols when we first came on the live. So yeah, we are definitely aware of that history. All right. Miss Jeanette down in Miami, she said parents have responsibility to civilization. Children must learn the 4 characteristics. A good citizen obeys the laws, keeps things clean, are informed, and cooperates. If we control our minds, we control our bodies. Understand cause and effect.
Amen.
Get that lesson. Good citizens obey the law, keep things clean, are informed, and cooperate. Okay. I hear that. All right. Dar said, tell that to Elijah McClain. Yeah, I know. All right. Mr. Love, hold on. D Glove said he needs to get access to all the data, not some of the data. It sounds like the tobacco company. Right. I agree. And Javon said, and many others. Indeed. All right. Mr. Love.
Yes, ma'am.
Counselor Love, former Officer Love. How can folks connect with you?
You can check out my LinkedIn page under my name, Mike Love, or you can go Help You Counseling LLC.
Yes.
And if you need any, talk therapy, or just want to chit chat or find a new way to do something, that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. He's also on Psychology Today, which is actually how I found him. So check him out. You have anything coming up in the near future?
I'm going to get my stepdaughter and my daughter to help me post on Facebook and Twitter. I know some social media, I'm just Facebook, and that's it for me. But,
Indeed. All right. Well, we are closing out September, which is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. So again, that National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is 988. You can call or text if you are in crisis or if you know someone who is. So definitely keep that number in mind, 988. And then I also invite you to subscribe to Conversations with Nicole on YouTube and follow us on IG and on Facebook. Subscribing is supporting, and we need all the support that we can get. Watch some of these shows, watch the replays, tag a friend, let them know. We are on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. And also, our regular season is on currently season 11, which is on Fridays at 7 a.m. on YouTube and on the Greater Works Network on Roku. So lots of ways to connect and to, catch these conversations. So we are in Florida and there is a storm brewing. So I want to encourage everyone in Florida to be careful. In Tallahassee, it was a beautiful day today. And I know you're in Jacksonville and there was a lot of rain today. So,
rain. And thank you. I definitely want to thank you before we loop. Thank you for allowing me to give this platform to pontificate. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. Let me see a couple final comments. I don't want to ignore anybody. Everybody with a phone is entitled to a record. Think about that. Everybody can record whites getting arrested just as much as you see blacks getting arrested. Why aren't we seeing that? Good question. Thank you, Nick. Javon, believe me, they would if that was true. They do everything else to prove that we are wrong. All right. Ozzy giving us some shout outs. Nick Maddox facts, very good. All right, dog. My favorite cop quit and started the Bigger Pockets podcast. Okay, have to check that one out. You're welcome, Javon. All right, very good. So thank you all. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Again, be safe out there. Check us out Friday at 7 a.m. or check out the replay on YouTube, Conversations with Nicole, as well as on Greater Works. And we'll see y'all next time. All right. Have a good one. Peace.